Hello there. By now, I think you must be expecting what I'll say up front. Remember to smile, keep smiling. That's great for your practice, great for your progress. So, with that, uh, we'll start off on day two of the retreat. By now, most of you would have started getting a hang of the practice. As discussed yesterday, I hope you planned and managed two sittings and one walking meditation today, or if you haven't already, you'd manage it by the end of the day. Do remember to fill the check-in form, the one-on-one guidance form that we have shared with you. And this is a very critical part of the process because this practice, like I mentioned on the first day, has very clear markers of progress. It's a very well-defined gradation, right? So when you fill in this form, it helps me to understand where you are, what you need at this point of time to make progress, and help you on your way using that information, right? So that would be a very important thing. Don't forget to do it. I have shared a video for a guided meditation earlier today. You can use it today if you need to, but by tomorrow, I would like you to get rid of those training wheels. You should be able to sit by yourself. It doesn't matter if you spend more than 10 minutes on your friend, if it goes a little up, little down, doesn't matter. If you go little slightly below or above 30 minutes, doesn't matter so much. Just make sure you use your intuition and get the sitting in. Okay. And I hope tomorrow, being a Sunday, before the week kicks off, you are planning and taking out time for a long sit. Okay. And I'll be rooting for a long sit for you. Great. So let me lay out what we're going to discuss today. I'm sure by now you've realized that your mind is not at all in your control. There are a lot of distractions that are coming up. So we'll talk about distractions. We also talked about how attention governs our experience of life, right? And what we'll do is we'll zoom into this. We'll zoom into one movement of attention, trying to understand what is the building block of life's experience, right? So that is the second section. And finally, I'm sure you had fun watching the video on the was fun in the terms that it was informative. Maybe not fun for the poor wasps which are dying out because of the whole beer bottle fascination, right? So we'll get into why that connects into our practice, what we're doing with working with attention, trying to understand life's experience. How do those wasps that love beer bottles connect with our experience, our meditation? So we'll kind of end on that note. Okay, great. So let's start with the section on distraction, right? So I'll use a few visual aids again. I'm sure by now you must have seen that your mind is full of thoughts, and these could be thoughts that are, related to things that you have to do, get done, you have to do later in the day after you're sitting. Maybe related to things that have happened just before. Maybe related to things that have happened years ago. Maybe related to things in the future that are going to happen very, very later in the future, right? Or it could be related to some sound you heard, something that you, some news that you read just before you're sitting. So a lot of things come in our mind, right? So what we'll do today is start with how the Buddha classifies distractions and try to see what's happening with that, right? And then we'll also look at how to treat distractions that come in our mind. Are they our enemies? Are they undermining our practice, or are they teaching us something important? Okay. So on to the visual aid. Let me just share my screen. So that's the title of our talk, and you'll soon understand why it's titled that, the pleasure pain pilot, our day to talk. Great. So this is how the Buddha classifies distractions, things that come up in our mind, right? So it's a useful way to understand how the mind works. You might have different thoughts that come up in these flavors. Think of these as flavors rather than very, very precise classifications. It's not like the periodic table where you have a very precise definition of a element, chemical composition of things, you know. So think of these more as flavors, right? So let's walk through these flavors and try to understand what they are and try to link them with the kind of things that come up in our mind, right? So on the left, we have the two, you can call them siblings. They're kind of related or counterparts to each other, greed and aversion. So they come with the underlying flavor. The greed comes with the underlying flavor of I like it or I want it. So something that you like, something that you want, right? So maybe you've something great cooked at home and you're really looking forward to it. Thoughts of that are coming up, right? Maybe you're feeling, very greedy about your meditation, that you want to sit much longer, right? So maybe you feel that way, or you feel like, okay, I had some joy come up yesterday, I want more of that today, right? Or it might be something that you're expecting to happen. So things that are with the flavor of I want it, I like it, right? So things that have some greed or some attachment in the form of greed towards them. So that is one flavor of some of the thoughts that come up in our mind, right? The counterpart of this is aversion. I don't like it. This is very common, especially when we start, because there are so many things that are destabilizing our practice, right? So somebody slams the door, or some vehicle goes by honking very loudly, and you hear that and you get irritated, right? Why is this happening? I just got in the flow of my sitting, right? So this has a flavor of I don't like it or I don't want it. I want this not to be there in my life, right? So aversion is that kind of a flavor. It could also be related to maybe somebody said something unpleasant to you at work or at your home, and that is doing the rounds in your mind, right? Or it could be related to some discomfort you're having while you're sitting, an itch that's coming up, you don't like it, you want it to go away. It could also be aversion for the fact that your mind got distracted. You want your mind to stay with the object of meditation, but it has been wandering away, and you can have aversion or irritation related to that. So this might be one of the flavors of the different thought processes, different things that are coming up in your mind. Okay. So before we go to the character in the center, we'll now move to the other two siblings or other two counterparts, which are restlessness and sloth. Okay. So restlessness is something that is related to our information seeking behavior, right? So you might have noticed many times that you end up picking up your phone even though there is no notification, no call coming in, right? There is a restlessness for more information. Have I got that email, or I'm expecting that WhatsApp, or I sent that message, why isn't the other person responding? Okay. Or if you're in traffic, maybe you're checking your ETA again and again, maybe you're checking the time again and again because you want to get out of it. So restlessness is characterized by information seeking behavior, a lack of patience for what's happening. It can also come in the flavor of remorse. There may be things in your life that are unresolved, right? Remorse or non-resolution, and you're keeping on cycling through them. Okay, what's happening with that? That is unresolved, that is open-ended, something has to happen. So your mind keeps kind of moving between these kind of things. In your sitting, you might experience it as, is the time up yet, right? Or I have 5 things to do after this, I better not forget any of those 5 things. So it can come up in that form. The counterpart of this, right? So when there is stimulation fatigue, right? So when you've been searching for information for a long time, you're trying to find out what is important in life, what you need to pay your attention to, you might find that there is a fatigue, there is a dullness that comes in your sitting. You might find that there is a period of time where you've forgotten about the object, you've not really interested in any other thought. You're just kind of ho-humming through it. You're going, maybe moving towards sleep. So there is a laziness and dullness kind of flavor to this, right? So these are the counterparts. One is overstimulation, so one is like seeking stimulation, seeking information, and the other is overstimulation and fatigue due to a lot of stimulation. And then we have the central one, which is doubt, right? So the nature of reality is that it is not very predictable. It is not dependable. There is always uncertainty in whatever we do. So doubt is being uncomfortable with that state of uncertainty. In your sitting, it might come as, am I doing this right? Am I getting the 6 hours right? Am I relaxing correctly? Am I sending the loving kindness out correctly? Those kind of things might come up as doubts, right? And this can be extremely debilitating. It can be extremely paralyzing. It can reflect in the larger scope of life as self-doubt, analysis, paralysis. It can have those kind of flavors as well. And all these distractions, these hindrances, right? So these are not just limited to your practice, right? So these are things that take away your attention, right? So what are distractions? They're color coded in a certain way. If you remember the thought bubbles from the previous talk, right? So the distractions or your mind going in areas where you don't intend them to be. You are intending to do something. In the meditation, you're intending to send that wish of happiness to yourself or to your friend, right? Stay with the object of meditation. But your mind is going into some kind of hindrance or distraction, right? So we can have this during daily life as well. You want to do something, but maybe there is some sloth, right? You're feeling lazy. Okay, I'll do it tomorrow, right? So why now? Why not later, right? So, or why do I need to do it? Why don't I ask somebody else to do it? So that could be, for example, sloth or restlessness. We talked about checking the phone from time to time, or if you're working in a team, asking for updates continuously, not letting the other person actually work and finish their work, right? Doubt, we talked about continuously evaluating yourself. Have I lived up to my potential? Is my future going to be secure? Are my loved ones going to be okay? Am I doing life right? So it could be as big as that, as a question, right? What is the meaning of everything? What is the purpose of my life? It could be anything like that. So doubt can be one of the distraction that we face in daily life as well. And greed and aversion are fairly straightforward, right? So you can have aversion, somebody honked behind you, you can have aversion to that, and you can have greed to maybe binge watch something on television, right? You actually intend to do something else, but you're continuously getting caught in with that distraction, which has the flavor of greed, right? Okay, so we have this classification. So, but what do we do with this distraction, right? Why are they coming up? What do we do with them? How do we treat them? So distractions come up, hindrances come up because the conditions are right in your mind for them, right? So maybe something you heard, something you saw, something you experienced, triggered off a chain of thought processes, triggered off a chain of thinking that led to that particular distraction, something that happened earlier, something that you're looking forward to, that has triggered off the distraction, right? So it is reflecting in a way the nature of your mind, the nature of your thought process, the nature of how your mind works. So distractions are not to be treated as enemies. This is how you're wired right now. So unless, like we talked yesterday, unless you can go out and get a new mind that doesn't get distracted, what actually makes sense for us is to work with our attention, understand our attention, and get better with it. Anytime a distraction comes up, and we recognize, right? So what we want to do is we want to be able to keep our mind intentionally at some place, right? In this case, that place is the object of meditation, sending that wish to ourselves or sending that wish to our friend. We want to keep it there. As soon as the distraction comes and we recognize that, we slowly and gently bring our attention back to our object using the 6 R's. We recognize that our mind is caught up with that hindrance, caught up with that distraction. We let it be. We remind ourselves that we are actually intending to do something else. At this stage, we also relax any tightness or tension in our mind. So that tension or tightness is actually gripping your attention onto that distraction, to that hindrance. So when we relax that, we are letting go of that more effectively. We smile, start our movement towards a wholesome state of mind, and return our attention to the object of meditation. By doing this, we are learning multiple things, right? So every time a distraction comes up, it is making you use your 6 hours, right? So it is helping you develop your attentional skills. It is helping you to recognize how your attention has moved, right? So your mindfulness is getting sharper every time a distraction comes, and you end up recognizing that. What, when we discussed yesterday, you might normally just look at, reflect on your day and say, okay, I had these 5 major events happen. But what the distractions in your meditation are doing is they are helping you to fine tune your attentional skills, sharpen your attentional skills. They are helping you to sharpen your mindfulness, being aware of the movement of mind's attention. And as you use the 6 hours, what you're also teaching your mind is that, hey, maybe I don't need to drop everything and get obsessed with this. This helps a lot when we talk about rabbit holes, right? So, what happens when we talked about rabbit holes are like extreme examples of these distractions, right? So in the case of greed, for example, a rabbit hole could be some kind of an addiction, right? Or Netflix addiction, or porn addiction, alcohol addiction. I want that, and my mind keeps getting into that state where it goes and seeks out that addictive substance. And no matter how many times we try to bring our attention back to a wholesome state, we keep going back. And the same thing can happen with aversion. Maybe there is something someone says that we don't like, somebody's personality trait, somebody's actions that we don't like, and we keep getting stuck in that, right? We can have even aversion towards ourselves, right? So people have issues with body image, self image, issues with how they have fared financially, professionally, right? And you might have a lot of aversion, not just towards other people, but towards yourselves as well. And what happens is, when it becomes a rabbit hole, you end up spending a lot of time there. It becomes really hard for your attention to come back to a wholesome state, or come back to something that you're actually interested in doing, that you actually intend to do. Same thing with restlessness. You might be always scatterbrained, always distracted, not able to focus on something, always looking for the next hit of dopamine when new information, new stimulation hits you, right? And that might affect your ability to do things when you're not restless. There is, not being restless is a great quality to have, important for achieving a lot of tasks, performing a lot of tasks, right? It might be hurting that. And with sloth, the same thing comes: inaction, continuously sliding down that rabbit hole of sloth, procrastinating for days on end, something that you want to do, something that you are interested in. And finally, doubt, not having the confidence to follow through on what you think or even know is right. So we are learning about these hindrances. We are learning how to train our attention when these hindrances or distractions come up, right? So that is the important thing. Like I mentioned, a good meditation sitting is, every time you recognize, you use the 6 hours to come back. You're teaching your mind extremely invaluable lessons. You're teaching the mind that, hey, it is important to observe where attention is going, whether it is going into a distraction, whether it is going into a rabbit hole. You're sharpening your mindfulness by doing this. The second skill that you're teaching your mind is that no matter what distraction is there, no matter what rabbit hole is there, no matter how attached I've been to this in the past, I can use the 6 hours and get my mind to a wholesome state. Which is why the 6 hours also has the last step as repeat. Because if it's a rabbit hole, it's going to be really persistent. Your mind will keep going there. But the 6 hours remind us that it is just a process that we need to repeat as many times as necessary. So if you're walking somewhere, if you're hiking, you fall down, you pick yourself up and you continue, right? It's as simple as that. Every time you fall down, you pick yourself up and you continue. The same thing with the 6 hours. Every time your mind goes into a distraction, goes into a rabbit hole, You pick yourself up using the 6 R's and you continue. And in a way, you can think of these distractions, they don't have a mind of their own. They're a reflection of the state of things in your mind currently, right? So they're also teaching you lessons on where your attachment lies. For whatever reason, your experiences of life have led you to a point where your mind places importance on certain things, places importance on what somebody said that you don't like, places importance on some substance that you just can't stop consuming, places importance on continuously getting new stimulation, new information, being restless, places importance on not doing things, conserving energy, being lazy, like not wanting to do things, not being interested in things. For some reason or the other, your mind has learned that, hey, I don't want to get too interested in it. I'm better off being disinterested, right? So every time a distraction comes up, it is teaching you something. And every time you're learning how to not get caught in that distraction, you're also weakening the grip that it has on your mind. So every time you have a distraction come up and you follow through on it, you indulge in it, you engage in it, you feed it with your attention, you're teaching your mind that this is important. I need to spend my time in this rabbit hole. I need to spend my time in this distraction. I need to invest in this. But every time you use the 6 R's, you're teaching your mind that, hey, this is no biggie. I don't need to completely go and drop everything and serve this distraction when it comes up. I can very easily let it go and get back to whatever it is that I think is important, that I'm actually intending to do. You're teaching your mind that lesson, right? So distractions are our friends. They get us to practice our mindfulness. They get us to practice harmonious practice or the 6 R's, the right effort. And they teach us invaluable lessons about our mind. And most importantly, they teach your mind that it is okay to let go of certain states that are not beneficial to you, not to fight with it, not to try to control it, but simply if your mind slips into that state, you have the option, you have the agency to get your mind out and back to a wholesome state. So that's the first section, right? So try to see what distractions are coming up in your mind. Yesterday, we talked about making an inventory of the things that are coming up in your mind. Try to see why your mind thinks it is important and try to see what changes over time as you teach your mind that I don't need to indulge in this every time this thought comes up. I have the option, I have the agency of simply stepping away and nothing changes. The sky doesn't fall on my head. The world economy doesn't collapse unless there is something urgent, something actionable that I need to do. I don't need to indulge in this. And that's the nature of rabbit holes. They don't come up with solutions, they don't come up with actions that we need to do. They just keep us indulging in them and wasting a lot of time, life, energy, and attention. Great. So that was the first segment, distractions. They are our teachers, they are our friends. They're making us better, making us stronger, making us smarter. And they are also diffusing themselves by giving us the opportunity to use the 6 R's every time they come up. They're going to teach you a lesson and then they're going to bid goodbye to you.